Everyone. So I think it's a good time for me to make this video. I know a lot of you hate when I make videos complaining about the game, but like I said, I think it's a good thing to complain about the game when it needs to be complained about so it can improve and become a better game. So I want to talk on this video about like the situation of abusing bugs and stuff and how like Legacy and Hyperboost has been treated. So the first thing I want to ensure here is that when something happens, for example, the Lucent bug that just happened with like the support or whatever, giving wrong amounts and screwing up the market, they try to work around that so quickly. Like in a few hours, the market was down, then the server was down, and then it by this time I'm recording this video, it is still down, so it's over 12 hours down by now. So it's crazy how quick they are when it's related to money, which is understandable because in this case it does affect the entire market of the game, the economy of the game, not only just in real life but also truly in the game. But well, I want to make this video to show like how I feel about the game overall. So 3 weeks ago we had Tico Talks where he talks about the Hyperboost and Legacy, right? And how like the situation of the Hyperboost is dire, and how like Legacy players are invading the Hyperboost portals just to steal loot from those portals, and how it's mega important. But be aware, this was 3 weeks ago. uh, and just recently on the last patch, we finally had an announcement on it talking about how they fixed it, and now like only Hyperboost players can play the Field and the Archboss from the Hyperboost servers, right? But nothing was addressed. I was waiting to see if bans would be insured, but nothing happened. So as expected, and that's how I feel. Because one of my friends asked me to help him like get into the Hyperboost servers to get like into the loot for the Arc bosses, and he said no, he was gonna get banned, and probably I would get banned as well. And he said nothing's gonna happen because everyone's doing it, and I just didn't think that would be the case. I actually thought bans would be insured, but nothing happened. So I guess he was right. And with this, I want to show like a little bit of the Hyperboost like search slash legacy situation, the Hyperboost overall, and how like Amazon slash NCSoft has been treating it and like managing it very poorly. The first thing I want to say is that regarding to exploiting and doing bug abuse, this has been always a thing since tier 1. On tier 1 you had a bunch of skips for bosses, for trials, a bunch of buff bugs that you could have permanent buffs that would increase your damage not only in PvE but also PvP, and all of things never got addressed. There was a bunch of bug abusing for certain things, like for example you could mark allies as enemies and then like do shadow alliances, which is a abuse of a feature. This never got addressed. They just removed the feature. There's a bunch of things that involves like the game that took advantage of things from the game that never got addressed, and this was all of tier 1. On tier 2 the same thing happened, and they started trying to show some like care. The first thing was on trials. People got warned, people got punished. I was one of the people that played trials and actually abused because I was so fed up with the game, and I got a warn and I lost my rewards for the season, which is fair. I even thought the punishment was too light and should be harsher. Just for example, the obsidian obsidian pieces, ores for the obsidian weapon got botted, like really botted. By the time that the feature launch, nowadays it doesn't matter that much because you get so many ores from so many different ways, but at the time you couldn't get anything like unless you were literally botting for like dwarves. I tried to hand farm that for like 20 hours and I got 10 pieces. And if I even got 10 pieces, I got like probably 5 to 10. And it was hell. And there was a bunch of people who just bought in macring all around everywhere on the Black Anvil Forge, right? And what happened is they got banned for 3 days and they kept like their Black Anvils. So some people that I know have 3 Black Anvils fully bought it and nothing happened to them. So all of that made me very salty over the span of time of tier 1 and tier 2, and now on tier 3 I'm salty again because again people just exploit, and it has always been this case. Exploit early, exploit fast. In case you don't know, there was even exploits for like heroic weapons and shards that you could assemble weapons and shards extracts. So like the trade extracts, you could break those, dissolve those, and get shards. And I know this is a thing that happened with a lot of people because I have friends that did that and still kept their heroic weapons. They still kept like their heroic armors. I don't think there was accessories by the time, but they kept the everything that they had. They used, they abused, they kept. So I know HS is way too slow. The same is happen for the golden chest. A lot of people abuse trial challenges that were not working for higher percentage on chests. A lot of people abuse bugs on the wall so they don't get damaged by the boss on the and to get faster chests, faster runs, right? And this keeps happening, and there's nothing new. And I just want to over report that in this game, honestly, if you find about something, it ends up always being the case that abusing that, the faster that you can, will reward you in the long run. It is what it is. I'm just gonna go over the top and report like what happened here. So on the legacy slash hyperboost, so on the hyperboost, what people were doing, they would queue up on the hyperboost portal with an out account or like a dead account, and then they would invite their normal accounts from legacy, so people that had like 7.5 thousand plus gear score, PV full build maxed out, and things like that, compared to everyone on hyperboost, which just had mostly hyperboost set, right? 6,000 GS at max with like trashy gear. And they would go into those field bosses, that being like Boracay, which was at the time the peak because of the Boracay sword, right? Great sword. Arc bosses should get like Cordy, E.Tevent, Deluzhnoas, even Bellingers, right? And they would go with those squads full of crucifix or even just overall stronger players, right? Stronger gear, and they would get like higher percentage of the bosses. So for example, the first bosses took so long to kill with the hyperboost servers, and the other ones were really fast because there was a lot of legacy players just infiltrating the hyperboost portals and basically getting like insanely high amount of contributions, like 13 to 15 to 20% from the boss, because they were basically the only ones doing the big damage to the boss, right? So the first few weeks, the first month, they kept doing that. It was really rough because the hyperboost servers, in case you don't know, don't have that many players, which means we basically had like 1 or 2 at max, sometimes 3 field boss portals compared to the normal legacy, which have a bunch of portals because portals are limited to 96 players, right? So not only we had little portals, little drops compared to the normal servers, most of the portals got infested with legacy players that would get the higher percentage of the boss contribution, which would end up taking most of the drops from the hyperboost servers to the legacy servers. So you could see in the auction house, I don't have a way to display right now, that we didn't have almost no drops for any of the field boss weapons. There was like mostly 1 or 2 in the entire market for the like both hyper boost servers. Even Archboss weapons were mostly missing. The only reason we got a few was because the first few weeks people didn't know about that, and we have the guild boss right on the game, which they cannot invade. They can only invade the Dominion / Peace bosses. So all of this ended up costing on total around 96 field boss drops, and on total 32 possible arc boss weapons. It could be probably more. This take into consideration if there was only 1 portal, and of course this is take into consideration if they took every single piece of loot, which did not happen, but they did take most of it. I would say at least 60 to 70% of the drops from the hyper boost went to legacy, people abusing the bug. And this is again with 1 portal. If we had 2 or 3, you just multiply this number by 2 or 3. On the same note, though, this is not related to bug abusing, this is not related to legacy bug abusing, this is related to hyperboost and how they have been like handling the servers. We didn't have battlegrounds on Hyperboost until launch. The only way to play by battlegrounds is doing the reverse bug abuse. So just how legacy abuses to use an out on Hyperboost to invite them to do those bosses. The only way you could do battlegrounds is if you have an account in the main servers and the legacy servers, and you get invited from the Hyperboost to queue up on the legacy battlegrounds. That's the only way you're gonna find battlegrounds queue, because it's bugged. So we missed like 3.2 thousand weekly combat coins, 12 PvP boxes, 2,000 runes, one PvP ring if you were saving for that, because it costs 3,000 combat coins, right? On top of that, we don't have inter-servers. Even though we have 2 servers, the inter-server zones are bugged since launch. So we lost 8 in a month, but probably more. We lost probably 12 by this point, because I think it's been almost 2 months, so 12 or 14. So from that, every week we're losing 200 trade swap zones. So we lost on total like 1.2 thousand blue swap trade zones, which doesn't sound like a big deal if you're on Legacy, but on fresh accounts on a new server on Hyperboost, you need those for like changing your legendary / heroic trades. You need those for changing the status. You need those for unlocking even normal weapons and gear. So it's an important resource to be missing. It's a pretty big deal that we didn't receive a single one of these compensations. On top of that, there's also the boss from the Rift / Boom that we should be getting an extra one, right, from the inter-service, which we don't get. So there's also this deal, which is not that big of a deal, but it's more important to mention. And be aware that all of this happens. We didn't get a single compensation for that. We didn't get compensation for our drops being stolen. We didn't get punishment for drops being stolen. Nothing happened. Nothing happened. And on top of that, if we wanna go really in depth of like how big of a big deal it is, we gotta go through Nebula Island. Nebula Island was bugged for a whole month. It got fixed in one region 1 week prior, so they had the Nebula bug for 3 weeks. We had for 4. The only Nebula that got fixed earlier was the South American Deluzhnoa server, Hyperboost, for some reason, and then the next week they fixed all the other ones, so are included. But we stayed with all Nebula for 4 weeks, which means we lost every week tier 3 pouches from the NPC, Nebula boxes, unlock stones from the weekly NPC from Nebula. We lost green turds, we lost Nebula drops from tier 2 to tier 3, we lost participation boxes from those boxes, we lost Exodus every week. On top of that, we also lost the possible tier 2 pouches and artifact boxes, which doesn't sound that important, but as a new player, as a new fresh account, it's very important to help progress your account. It's important to get the RNG on the artifacts, because it is mega RNG. It is a very rough system, right? So here you can see on total we lost on 4 weeks 80 tier 3 pouches, 28 Nebula boxes from the shop, 28 green turks, which led to 28 tier 3 and tier 2 Nebula drops missing, 28 participation boxes missing, because if you hit the green turd and you kill it, you get a Nebula box for every single one. 4 Exodus, which led to tier 3, 12 tier 3 Nebula drops missing, 12 tier 2 Nebula drops missing, 20 Nebula box missing. So you get the idea. This is just to put the core here. So as a single player, just by yourself, if you count everything, on this whole month that you missed the Nebula Island, you lost 80 tier 3 pouches, 76 Nebula boxes, which is insane, by the way, 100 unlock stones, and the Nebula drops is overall, it's not related to players, related mostly to whoever wins, guilds / alliance, right? But when you take into consideration just the guild and alliance, if you take into consideration the server, it's like way more. But let's take into consideration just a guild. So if you lost this as a guild or as an alliance, you lost 5.6 thousand tier 3 pouches, or 11.2 thousand tier 3 pouches, or 5.3 thousand Nebula boxes and 10.6 thousand Nebula boxes in Alliance. The unlock stones are also pretty insane, plus the drops and everything that you would be missing as a guild / alliance. And none of this got reimbursed, none of this got a compensation, none of this even got mentioned on the patch. It got fixed without really nothing being like done about it. If you take into consideration the unlock stones that we get from the boxes, as a singular player, you lost 328 unlock stones, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's literally an extra week basically of unlock stones that you're missing. And if you multiply that for the guild and for the alliance, then you see the big picture of like how many unlocks were actually missing entirely. We lost a total of 23,000 unlocks for the guild and 46,000 unlocks for the alliance. So it is a pretty big deal. It is a lot of materials that went missing. And then again, this video is just to put up the situation of like how the game treats problems, how they deal with bug abuse, how they deal with priority when it comes to things like that, and how they don't solve things. They don't give compensation for their mistakes, and how much that you end up losing, missing just from the game mistakes. And I don't think that's okay. I don't think that's fair. And I wanted to make a video to report on the numbers because I actually think it's important to crunch those numbers and to, compare those to what you should be getting, right? So it's also important to put this, for example, yesterday with the whole Lucent thing, NA East, I know about the other regions because I don't know the times for them, but imagine some other regions also lost their Archboss schedules. So will this be compensated? Because on the South American servers and the EU servers, even on some Siege moments, the Archboss simply disfound the events, like just like Siege simply didn't happen, not because of this, but because of other server bugs in the past that made the server go down, and those never also got compensated. So it's really frustrating to expect things from AJS. So I'm just making this video mostly to report and to honestly put my instance on how I feel about the whole bug and exploit abusing and like the compensation of the game. Because right now what the game keeps telling me is every time I see a bug, I should abuse it as fast as possible before it gets patched, because no one's gonna get punished. And even if they gets punished, it was still worth it in the long run. And when you're missing things straight up from the game, they will not be compensated. So you just have to do what's best for your account, which is frustrating because it should not be this way. This video is already mega long, so I'm going to stop here. I just wanted to show the calculations for things and to report on what happened and like what's going on. But that's about it. Thank you for watching. See ya.